Hey, Pastor Steve Waldron. I hope you're having an incredible day or night in Jesus. I've been talking a little bit about dinosaurs and depictions of dinosaurs around the world. So we're looking at St. George and dinosaurs, dragons, whatever you'd like to call them. Of course, dragons are mentioned many times in Scripture. So let's just take a look. Thanks for being here. Join us daily. Share with your friends. And we're on GenesisPark.com, a wealth of information. I really like the website. And this is about their article on depictions of dinosaurs. So we just use it fair use. We talk a little bit, discuss a little bit kind of thing. So the slaying of a ferocious dragon by St. George, an extremely common motif in medieval art. And of course, probably most all of us have got even just a faint understanding, recollection of this, hearing about it. And so, according to the story, the fierce dragon ate all the town's livestock and was demanding human sacrifices. The lot fell upon the beautiful princess, who then needed to save the town by giving up her life. But just before she was killed, brave George showed up, killed the dragon, and rescued the princess. Various European artists interpreted the dragon differently, depending on local knowledge and lore. Now, of course, William Cooper with the Creation Science Movement UK has documented, he was like an old English scholar, Cambridge grad, I think, and was a Beowulf historian, found a dinosaur, I think, in Beowulf, or a semi-dinosaur. But he also located 200 place names in the UK that were named after dinosaurs, which is interesting. And so this is all part of that. A wonderful medieval depiction is seen at Palau de la Generalitat in Barcelona, Spain. St. George's Chapel contains an altar cloth illustrating St. George's slaying of a dragon. I think St. George was supposed to be in England, but of course the legend went all over. The depiction bears an amazing likeness to the Nothosaurus, a semi-aquatic reptile. Notice the correct size, the crocodilian body style, and the fascinating long curved teeth from the jaw that gives way to finer definitions toward the back. So again, this depiction there in Spain shows St. George fighting a dinosaur, and in this carving, the dragon looks suspiciously like a Nothosaurus, which it could be, there's correlation that the person who made this made it look like that, because it doesn't necessarily look like the dragon mentioned in Revelation 13, Revelation 12, all this. So yet another interpretation of St. George slaying the dragon is found in the Latin Book of Hours, 1450 AD. I do want to briefly pause and say that is worthy of a whole nother video, at least. The Book of Hours, fascinating. It's like medieval devotional book, which is illuminated by the master of Jean Chevrot and currently housed in the Morgan Library and Museum. Notice the master's attention to detail, as seen in George's armor, the birds in the sky, and the dragon's genitals. The Fitzwilliam Museum contains another portrayal of St. George destroying the dragon, probably by Brutus, from a Latin Book of Hours, 1490 AD. This wonderful work from the Flemish school portrays remarkably dinosaur-like dragon. Next, we present an illustration of George. Of course, you can't see the illustrations, but I do recommend this article to everybody, regardless of where you're at on the spectrum of understanding all this. What evidence? Leading a defeated dragon is seen in the book of Huth Hours, published in the Netherlands in 1480. Currently in the British Library. The monster has a curiously large stomach, perhaps gravid, and is web-footed. But note the accurate reptilian ear and dinosaurian neck. Finally, below on the right is a portrayal of St. George from the early 1500s, courtesy of the Bibliothèque Nationale de France. The dragon's head is rather flattened, like the snout of a Baryonyx dinosaur. So here's a couple more artistic variations of the fin of St. George slaying the dragon, both from Belgium. And so we see the famed Knight of Cappadocia lancing a slender reptile featuring a prominent long neck. Cappadocia would be more like Turkey. And that's interesting. what would have inspired an artist from Bruges, Belgium in the year 1440 to display the dragon in this painting with such a long neck? It doesn't resemble any common reptiles that he would have known, like a lizard or crocodile, but it does look very much like a certain kind of dinosaur, like a juvenile diplodocus or the small reptile Taniostropheus. To the right is an illustration from the Book of Hours by Simon Benning of Ghent. The dragon he drew is huge, on the order of a Komodo dragon. But how could an artist in the mid-1500s know about such a reptile? With his lance, George boldly transfixes the dragon. Around him, the ground is strewn with bones. At the distance, the princess stands on a hill, helplessly raising both hands, and the king is seen watching from a tower. So I could have that wrong. Maybe St. George was supposed to have killed this dragon in Cappadocia, not in Great Britain. Be that as it may. The point is, it's not a slam dunk proof, but it is fascinating that regardless of where you're at in this couple 1,000-mile area that's depicting this, this Christian kind of motif, they suspiciously look like dinosaurs that they may have seen in those areas. So interesting. And we're going to look at another one, St. Margaret of Antioch, but we'll do that tomorrow. So God bless. Thanks for being here. Join us daily. See you later. Bye-bye.